Welcome to Cities on the Move. I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. Charles City resident Richard Young has an extensive collection of postcards that illustrates the city's history. He shares them with us today. We also visit the Mooney Art Collection, an amazing collection that includes famous pieces by Rembrandt, Picasso, and Whistler. And if you've ever wanted to go whitewater kayaking, Charles City will soon be a great destination for this sport. City Administrator Tom Brownlow and his guests tell us about the new plans for the riverfront. Stay tuned for Cities on the Move. Richard Young is a fan of Charles City. He is especially interested in its history and has assembled a collection of postcards that highlight some of the community's most memorable moments. Let's meet him now.
I'm Richard Young from Charles City. I've been a resident of Charles City for a long time. We've been in the area forever. I started collecting postcards when we moved to Charles City after we were married, and it's been over 40 years we've been collecting them that we have today. Just happened to find some stuff that we had, and they were interesting, and then one thing led to another. We found more and more, and it's just a lot of history in the postcard collection. Pretty much the subject matter is totally Charles City postcards. They have to say Charles City on them, and they have to be a postcard, because that was a means of communication back in the early 1900s, and a lot of postcards were in the market then. A lot of the pictures I have are individual businesses, they're individual churches, a lot of Main Street pictures of panoramic pictures of Main Street buildings, the suspension bridge, a large display of suspension bridge from being built to when it was destroyed, and the Hart Par, the Oliver, during the phases of that business. It's very interesting, the history of Charles City in postcards. That particular frame is the tornado of 1908. They took a large number of postcards and put pictures of all the devastation that was in the tornado that went through Charles City, pretty much the same path as the one in 1968. This frame is postcards of the suspension bridge that went across the Cedar River. It was used a lot at the time of the Chautauqua. They had events on one side of the river and couldn't get to it, and they go back to the early 1900s when people went across to the events, up to the present day, before it got destroyed in the flood. Some of the early ones are in the 1880s, 1890s, when Charles City was starting to get to a booming stage. A lot of the old buildings, the old factories, and the old schools and churches. After the tornado, there was a few new pieces out of Central Park and a few things of the present buildings in, I'd say, the early 60s, late 70s, and that's the thing that I don't have any more than that, because I don't know how many is printed anymore. Postcards are not a thing that's here. We collect memorabilia from Charles City. We got onto the postcards, and then there was always other things from Charles City, so we started collecting advertising pieces from Charles City. From the beginning of time of Charles City, I have stuff from the first bank that was ever in Charles City up to the present day. It's just a great community, small midtown, hometown USA.
Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about whitewater. We have some special guests from Charles City, Iowa, who are joining us to tell us about a new development along their riverfront. We have City Administrator Tom Brownlow. We have Larry Kurtz, who is the architect on the project, and we have Ty Graham, who is a paddler and who can tell us a little bit about the fun things that you're going to do with all this white water once it gets created. So thanks for being on the program, guys.
Thank you.
All right, Tom, let's start with you and tell me a little bit about how the City of Charles City kind of came upon this idea.
Well, it goes back to, I think, about 2006 we started on this. We had a group of students from Iowa State University and Larry, and between that group they brainstormed some ideas, gave us some concepts, and well, there's really a lot to it. I know the Whitewater Park, though, just sort of jumped out at us. It was a unique idea, probably something we wouldn't have come up with on our own, and that led us to apply for an Iowa Great Places Award, and we were named an Iowa Great Place in 2007.
Okay. So what was the riverfront being used for currently?
Well, it basically, we just mow it. You know, it's green space that areas that had been flooded and we acquired through FEMA buyouts primarily. And the city thought, well, why are we wasting this? You know, and why do we want to have a place that we're just going to mow? Let's try and develop this asset, the Cedar River and all this nice riverfront that we have. So it's been a goal of the city's for a long time, and this is sort of the jewel in the crown.
All right, very good. Now, Larry, you are kind of the dreamer, and wow.
The dreamer, yes.
You're going to bring it all together, and you've planned quite a bit along the riverfront. Describe it for us, if you would, all the different pieces that the community is taking a look at.
Well, we started out, I guess, as looking at just that part of the park, and we really took a broader view to try to let people know that there's the other side of the river that you're dealing with, and there's the actual water. And so I think that I had talked to Ty before, and we had done some Whitewater Park drawings for him, and because he was so excited, and we said, Ty, come up and look at this, because there's a Lowhead Dam that needs, you know, to become safe. We need to do some modifications to that. And then we came up with this concept of the kayak course there from his connections, and we included that in the master plan, and we basically talked about all these different things that we could do along the river to make it more accessible for people to come down and enjoy it versus having it walled off and really not accessible. So we wanted to improve it for fisheries, we wanted to improve the park for access, and you know, make it more usable for people friendly, if you will.
All right, and where is this riverfront located? It's kind of right in the middle of town, isn't it?
It is. It's we have two bridges across the Cedar River, Main Street and Branningham. They're both right downtown, and this is in between them, or at least the Whitewater Park is, and then the rest of the development continues on downstream from there. It's actually 26 acres of land and 11 acres of water that we're going to be developing.
Wow, okay. Larry, walk through all the features from the Whitewater Park to the boat ramp to the, tell us what it'll look like kind of from one end to the other.
Well, from one end to the other, we're improving the trails and providing access to the river. And we do that through both the Whitewater Park, which is the furthest, most upstream feature. Right after that, we put a boat ramp in that's accessible, some bathrooms, of course, and some heated showers. From there, we have an amphitheater that we're actually excavating out to get closer down to the river, so we have a little music place there. And then it's all made out of really large stones so that it can be flooded, and it will be flooded. From there, we have a ravine play area, which is, well, we talk about this natural play for kids and trying to get them away from their iPods a little bit and get them outside and learn about nature. Yeah. And so we've dug back again into the river bank and made a place where kids can have the willow trees to play with, and the sand and the rocks and the climbing, and just all of that type of experience. We do have a rather large concrete slide in there too, so that we have a little bit of a feature for them too. And there's a little bit of water fountain there also, I should add. And then of course we have some structures for picnicking, etc. Then our last feature down the way is a stormwater fountain, where we had to have a terminus for the park because we couldn't continue the path on down the stream because of private ownership. So we wanted to terminate the park there with we're taking a street out. We're letting some of that stormwater come down through, and we're using that as an education tool for kids to understand, water infiltrates into the earth, and it does it in different ways with different materials. So.
Wow. Okay. Well, that sounds excellent. What kind of timeline are you guys looking at for the implementation of this, and what kind of funding? Do you have the funding in place, or is this kind of pay as you go, and as you get the resources, you'll put it in? Or?
Well, it's been a pretty long timeline. Like I say, we started planning in 2006. We received our our permit from the Iowa DNR in February. So that'll allow us to start working on the whitewater course.
Okay.
We've got a fair bit of funding in place. The Iowa DNR has given us grants totaling a little over $366,000, and that's for use on the whitewater park. And that was basically 50% of the estimated cost, although the cost has gone up a little bit since then. I mentioned that we were named an Iowa Great Place, and so far they've given us grants that total a little over $382,000. We've received a grant through the DNR that pays 75% of the cost of the boat launch. So that's a big piece. And I guess locally we've raised a lot of the money through our hotel motel tax.
Okay.
The citizens, when they created that, they designated that a portion of that be used for park and recreation capital improvements, and this is really the first big project that we've done with that money.
Great.
And I should also mention we've had some good local partners. Quickstar has pledged $20,000, Allied Manass $25,000. The mayor has kicked in $100,000.
Wow.
So
oh my goodness.
We're still looking for more, but we're well on our way.
A great collaboration, lots of resources there.
Yep.
All
Yep.
right. Well, Ty, you are our paddler, you are our kayaker expert person today. Tell us a little bit about what a whitewater course is and why it's so much fun.
Well, the easy answer to that would be a whitewater park is like building a skateboard park out of water, although it's not technically accurate. There's a few things that you need to build a whitewater park. There's this grid called a priority matrix that we use to figure out whether a community has the potential of developing a whitewater park. And a few of those things are is you have to have enough cubic feet per second, you have to have enough water flow, you have to have enough drop in between a certain area, and then you also look at things like amenities, on-shore, bankside stuff. You want to have, if you can have the river at the end of your main street, like the way Charles City is set up just perfect for, that's great, because then that way you can have the park. The other stuff is accessible to the park, food and hotels and whatnot. So I forgot where I was going with that, I'm sorry.
Tell us a little bit about what you use, or kind of the skills and the tricks and the, you know, when you have a whitewater park, explain to folks, is it a race or is it an obstacle course, or what do you do with it?
Well, you know, a whitewater park is primarily built for freestyle kayaking. And basically what you're doing is you're building features, you're building hydraulic jumps, waves, and holes. And basically what you would do, Stephanie, is you would face upstream and get into one of these hydraulics, which are engineered safe. And then you do a variety of different tricks on these waves and in these holes. You can do anything from front flips to back flips, cartwheels, flat spins. I mean, you're pretty much limited by your imagination and you know, how far you want to advance with it.
Okay.
It's really exciting and a lot of fun.
Great. And this is kind of an emerging sport. Are there competitions available at this point, or is it mostly just people getting out there and experimenting?
No, there's full-on world championships now, and national championships. There's money competitions that are happening all over the United States, out in Colorado, Reno. There's some new parks developing in Wyoming and Idaho. Mainly out west is where they are, but anywhere that you have what meets the priority matrix, the water and the drop, you can build a park and have a competition, and there's no reason why we can't do that in Charles City or anywhere else.
Great. And are there any other whitewater parks located in Iowa or Minnesota or close by, or are these guys really putting together something that's unique?
No, these guys are definitely building something that's unique, not only unique to Iowa, but unique in the country in the development of their onshore stuff as a part of the whitewater park as well. The closest man-made engineered whitewater park would be probably South Bend, Indiana, which is around 460 miles from Charles City. So this is going to be a real big draw for this entire Cedar Valley, not just Charles City, but the state of Iowa as well.
All right. So Tom, did you take into account, kind of looking at this idea, that you guys perhaps could attract a new group of folks to Charles City by developing something like this?
Well, we did. I think one of the things we were interested in is not just tourism, but we thought it could really help rejuvenate the downtown Main Street area. And I know the engineers that are working with us on the course, they said, well, you know, everywhere we do these, you'll have outfitters spring up, you'll have restaurants spring up, and so we're looking for that to happen downtown.
All right, very good. And it sounds like, Larry, you have planned for kind of all of these things and making sure there's, I'm assuming there's viewing space, people come and watch these events.
Right, there's onshore, you know, retention with rocks, et cetera, that are the paths and every place you can see. We're real fortunate as we came to Charles City that there was a pedestrian bridge across this, exactly where we're going to put this anyway, so people can stand on the bridge and look right down on it, on what's going on, and TV, they can film it. And
it'll be a great vantage point. It's really set up really well for this type of project.
All right. And what kind of equipment, when folks come in, give us a sense of, you've been to some of these other events, what happens when you host an event and the type of equipment that comes in, how long do people stay? Give us a picture of what this community might experience if they were to host a competition.
Usually river festivals that are surrounded or involve freestyle kayaking are a 3-day festival. So you can have a series of preliminaries and then final events to narrow it down to who's going to be in the final event. Reno, Nevada's event this year, their 2010 event, I believe drew 44,000 people over a 3-day period. Now they do have other things going on. It's not just about their freestyle park or their whitewater park, but 44,000 people is a significant draw. And to be honest with you, Charles City's park, although it won't be as long as the park in Reno, it'll be just as technically advanced as the one in Reno.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I was just going to ask, from the city's perspective, does this create any new liability for you, or how do you regulate who uses this whitewater course, or is it kind of open to anybody who wants to put a boat in the water?
The course is open to the public, and we don't charge for anybody to use it. It's just part of the river. As far as liability, that's an issue that's come up, and Iowa Code gives cities a I guess immunity when you build recreational facilities. You know, if we didn't do that, you'd be afraid to do anything.
Sure.
So as long as we have it properly engineered, and we think we have the best firm in the country to do that, we have an immunity for any accidents that occur there.
All right. Any safety precautions that folks who participate in this sport recommend for, you know, I imagine you'll get a lot of novice people going, wow, this looks really cool, and you'll have locals wanting to try it that may not be as experienced. What do you suggest for people who want to give it a try?
Well, I would suggest that you, number one, bring a good attitude. Anybody that does this type of event is going to have some familiarity with the sport of freestyle kayaking. You should have some background in paddling. Then you're going to need a helmet, you're going to need a life vest. Elbow pads are a good idea because usually the rock features are not real deep in the water as well. But to be honest with you, this park is going to be engineered safe enough where tubers are going to be able to go through. Or if somebody with just a life vest on, you'll be able to come floating and get churned in the water and spit out.
Okay.
I've seen that at several parks around the country.
Okay. And is swimming currently a feature of the river, or people don't use it that way?
Well, this area is really sort of rapids. Right downstream from the Lowhead Dam, you know, that's a very dangerous area. It creates a hydraulic that would actually grab you and push you to the bottom and hold you there. So they've been associated with a lot of deaths. So this will remove that danger because now the water will be directed downstream. But this particular area is, like I say, whitewater. People wade out to fish, but there wouldn't be any swimming.
Yeah,
so.
and fisheries is something you mentioned too that you'll be enhancing as well.
Well, yeah, as part of this project, we're modifying, as I mentioned, the Lowhead Dam, but we're also going to put a fish ladder in there. And the fish will be able to go up, and there's pools along the way where they can rest. So we had sort of a dead area between the two dams, and now fish will be able to pass upstream over the Lowhead Dam. We hope sometime in the future we'll modify the other dam, and then we'll have fish passage all the way along that part of the Cedar.
All the way through. Great. Well, it sounds like a very exciting project. If folks have questions about it, how can they get in touch with you, or who should they call if they'd like to learn more about the...
Well, they can call City Hall. Our number is 641-257-6300. Okay. We've done our best to get the information out. I know the Park and Recreation Board has had a lot of hearings. They've hosted meetings for fishermen. I think we've been inside and out on this. So probably whatever questions you have, we can answer them.
Sounds good. Well, it sounds exciting, and I wish you the best of luck with this. We look forward to seeing its completion.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Stay tuned for more Cities on the Move. might not expect to find a Rembrandt in a small town in Iowa, but the Mooney Art Collection is an impressive display of world-renowned artists. Let's take a look.
Rembrandt, Picasso, Cézanne, art masters whose work is on display in New York, Paris, and Charles City, Iowa. This bustling small town in Iowa is home to an impressive collection of original paintings, engravings, etchings, dry points, and woodcuts from some of the world's most famous and respected artists. The collection was a gift from Arthur Mooney. Charles City Library Director Virginia Ruzicka explains.
Arthur Mooney was a photographer in Charles City at the turn of the century. He was a portrait photographer, and he was well thought of. The archived newspapers talk about when he was leaving how he would be badly missed because he was such a fine, talented photographer. When he left Charles City, he went to Minneapolis to to take an art class or an art course. And following that art course, he went to New York and became a photographer for Eastman Kodak. And in that position, he traveled the world, and then he collected artworks, and he collected books about the art, the artist, or the time period. Mr. Mooney spent his childhood here, and he had a very strong feeling that art was for the people. And so his motivation for donating this art collection of his to the library was motivated from the fact that he wanted people in Charles City to be able to enjoy great art. He had donated a few pieces early on, and then when he died in 1941, the rest of the collection came here because he felt strongly about Charles City. And it is my assumption that he must have had a good relationship with the library, and that's where he thought the collection belonged, to have the most people enjoy it.
The collection remained in storage for many years, with the exception of a small Rembrandt that caught the fancy of the janitor.
Among the 4 Rembrandts that we own, there's a little piece called Artist in a Plumed Hat. And apparently, many years ago, when the library was still in the Carnegie building, the janitor must have liked this piece. It's not a very big one. It's probably only about 4 inches square. But he must have liked this piece, and he had taped it to the asbestos furnace pipe. So a few years ago, we had to send it to a conservator to be repaired.
In 1996, the Library Board started a campaign to publicly display the collection.
In 1996, the Library Board launched a program to have the community donate money to put them in frames that were archivally correct, chemically inert, and all alike. In the community, we have a marvelous community here because they raised $36,000 to get these framed, and so in 1996 they became framed.
Today, the 76-piece collection is on permanent display in a specially designed gallery.
There are pieces here from by artists that are well known: John Whistler, Rembrandt, Picasso, Hiroshige, Cézanne, Chagall, all names that are very common. But there's also some what I would call minor artists: Gasal and Muller, Efferding, names that people don't know so well. Picasso is a pretty well-known artist, and we have 2 pieces by Picasso, and they are very different in style from each other. And I think that's kind of an interesting way to collect art, so that Mr. Mooney collected one that is almost a line drawing and one that is very detailed and has lots of detail in it. We also have 2 by Grant Wood. One is called Honorary Degree, and the other is the Tree Planting Group, and those are very popular. My favorite piece is one by Rembrandt. It's called Descent from the Cross, and I guess it expanded my appreciation of the time when Jesus was removed from the cross, and it's just not like bing, he's off the cross and in the grave, but it was kind of an effort. And in looking at that picture, you not only see the main event, which is them taking the body off the cross, but as you look in the background are people, and there's a robe with all kinds of paisley print on it, There's so many things to see in the details, and I'm in awe of the artistry that it took to make that happen.
You can visit the Mooney Art Gallery during normal business hours at the Charles City Public Library.
And now for the calendar of events. RAGBRAI will be coming through Charles City on Wednesday, July 28th with an overnight stop. Enjoy all the festivities with the bikers, music, food, and fun. For more information and to get a schedule, call 641-228-4234. On July 21st through the 25th, Owatonna, Minnesota will be celebrating Crazy Days. This is no ordinary one-day sidewalk sale. Crazy Days is, yes, a sidewalk sale and more. It's a children's parade. They'll have music, a hog roast, a street dance. Many classes are having their reunions, and there'll be an arts fair. For more information, visit owatonna.org. The Rochester Public Library is hosting a special exhibit, Race, Are We Really So Different? A tour will take you anywhere between 20 minutes for young children and 2 hours for adults. And this exhibit helps communities understand what race is and what it is not, and will offer individual visitors critical tools to recognize race and racism in their own lives. The exhibit will be on display through August 28th. For more information, visit mayoclinic.org/race. If you have an event to share with our viewers, log on to ksmq.org and post it today. Next week on Cities on the Move, we revisit an archived episode of Cities on the Move. We visit with Nancy Vanderwert, Vicki Lunning, and Scott Golbuff to learn more about the activities of service clubs in Albert Lea. We meet Kim Kwapik, who has a keen eye that has helped develop her skills as a photographer. And we also drop in on Don and Narita Rippentrop. They have been gardening in the city's garden plots for many years and are happy to share their green thumb knowledge. Please join us Tuesday, July 20th at 6:30 p.m. on KSMQ for another edition of Cities on the Move. I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. Good night.
Production of this program is made possible in part through a grant from the Blandon Foundation.